Oh, so much around structure. Structure is two or more things, and everything around us is structure. And when structures, two or more structures, are related or have something in common, what keeps them together is tension. And our body is a structure held together by muscles and ligaments, all by tension that keeps us upright, keeps us walking, keeps us in action, keeps us moving, keeps us alive. And what always in structures is that the tension is always seeking resolution. And so everything is seeking equilibrium. And so the difference between structures, a building has a structure to it. Its building has a structure with tension, holding it together as a building. But if you break down that building into the components of sand and rock, you can now move it. And it's different tension that's holding. It's still the same components, just different tensions together. And so there's always tension. And tension is more of like a measure. It's the difference between two states. And structures are two or more states that are related. And so in structures, when they're seeking, when there's tension between them, they're seeking to resolve this tension. And so when we say that we want to create something, when we say the future, I want to produce something out there, is what we're saying is that I want, and then that I am. And so there's always something in the future, and then there's always a point of where we are now. And what we'll look at is the tension between the two is just what's different. What is it like now versus what will it be like then? And so what happens is, as this tension there, it seeks resolution. So we could say, oh, I'm hungry. That's just a chemical reaction, telling us that, oh, we need fuel. We need to fill up. And then when we eat, we're satisfied. We're no longer hungry. We're hungry went away. And so do you see the tension between that has resolved by the action that we've taken? Thirsty is another side. Hot and cold. Do you see how all of them are at some disequilibrium seeking the center? And so there's opposites, which the opposites are always inside of a range of perspective. So with one perspective, you can always look at, well, what's the other side? What's the other perspective of this? And these become structures. And with these structures, we can see what tension is holding them together, because we create our tension between the perspectives. And so if we look at a range of perspectives, we always look at, well, here's the worst and here's the best. And what we tend to do as a society, 99% of us focus in on the worst that could happen. And we put so much energy on the worst that could happen that there's tension that's resolving from this creation, from this focus. We're avoiding it. We're trying not to have that. And so it's away from the worst. But you see, we started it as the worst, and I don't want that. I want to be away from that. And there's so much energy resisting this, resisting, not wanting it. That one, just imagine how much energy you put into not failing. Ooh, when I just say, oh, like failure, what if you failed? Just notice the tension that shows up in whatever structure you create. What if I say, oh, you can have what you want? Notice what resistance, what structures you put in place. When I say that, you'll think of two things. You'll say what you want, how is it now, and you'll judge it. You're putting resistance, you're creating resistance to it. And then this one that I really love is like fear. Fear is what we avoid. So what you avoid from fear is a pattern of whatever I'm afraid of, I'm going to stay away from. And so what you are resisting, well, just imagine how much energy you're resisting in fear. And our best solution is always to focus on the worst, that it's going to be better, right? And to avoid that, I don't want that to happen because that could happen. And just see and just acknowledge from the point of scarcity that this structure comes from the problem orientation, from the victim being powerless, where this structure comes from. And when we can stop resisting this fear of failure, we can stop resisting being able to have this, and we can stop resisting our fear, then we can allow for success. We can allow for ourselves to desire and create what we want. And we can create and desire just what we would love to have, rather than what we're afraid of. Create what we want. And this is just flipping things upside down, just looking at them differently, which is the creative structure. And so what this is a willing to stay in the creative structure while we're creating it. This is to become something that we're not yet. So to be before we see it. And this is to stay in the creative structure. It's like, oh, I'm creating this business, I'm creating this coaching, I'm creating this online community. What's it like now? Oh, it's at the very beginning. This is where we're going with it. And it's like to allow ourselves, like, what would that person be like? What would they be saying? What would they be doing? How would they be doing it? It's like, oh, it'd be like this. And that's the action that we're in when we can remove the resistance towards what we love. We're knowing the right action. We're knowing the right structure. We're flowing for it. And then we just look at what structures aren't flowing. If none of them, like, which one do we need to get flowing, move so that we can get going with that? And so this is just noticing, where are we resisting, willing to stay in this creative tension, even though we don't have it yet, even though it may not be working out, even though, like, you can get on yourself, you could beat yourself up, but it's like all inside of the creative tension. Rather than buckling to your egoic wounds of saying, like, oh, I'm broken, I need to go fix myself. Oh, I can't do that. Let me lower my goal. Let me bring it down. Let me reduce it. And let me make it smaller. Right? So why not focus on the best? Why not focus on what we want? Why not focus on what success looks like? Why not focus on, I want this, I desire this, and it would be like this? Why not go for just what you love? Most of the time, it's because we're scared of a change. This has kept us alive. This structure, this tension has kept us alive how we are. And that's been our best option, our best solution. What we're saying here is, oh, let's focus on the best. Let's create the best, because it's going to be in that direction anyway. Let's use creation. Let's use the momentum, the inspiration of what we love. That is the greatest emotion. And the two things that we can control is, how do we feel about it now? So what this says is like, oh, I have it now already. I am that already, which means that there's nothing material out there to get. It's a feeling. And not until I opened up my feelings after 43 years was I allowed to see this and observe this and see that creation, the emotions, was the missing piece for me creating it, as well as that I was in the wrong structure. I was in a problem orientation structure. It was never going to be enough for me. And I was chasing the money. And not until I had the money would I allow myself to have a life I loved. See how I was the victim to money. I gave money more power than me. And for that, I was always chasing. I was always oscillating and never fulfilled. And so now it's flipped, like, oh no, I'm going to go for a life that I love, do what I love. I don't know what that is. Like I do. It's like part of this. Where's it going? I'm feeling that in. I'm feeling it in with, what does it feel like to live a life I love? What does it feel like to live my true nature and purpose? What does it feel like to be the predominant creator of what I can create? And just noticing what I put in the way. Say, how fascinating is that? Move it out of the way, get my structures flowing, get them working, experience what's happening now and enjoy it. Because I am living the life that I love now, not some other time, because it's every day for me. And yeah, not everything works out perfectly. Yeah, I get frustrated, but this is the new pattern to live from. It's like, how much of the time am I living from the creative orientation? Oh man, it's getting more and more. It's work. It's practice. It's like a muscle. And so that was here is like just willingness to stay in the creative structure, the creative tension. It's as if we were all a seed. What happens if the seed's not planted? Nothing's going to happen. But when the seed is planted in it, what if it doesn't have all the ingredients? It's in the soil, but it doesn't have all the right ingredients there. There's not enough water. The soil's not well enough. There's not enough nutrients in the soil. That seed will never see its potential. But if all those things are there, if all the ingredients, all the nutrients are there, and this seed starts to grow, it pops out. It's not what we look, but it's not like what we saw. And even if we broke open that seed, we wouldn't see the tree. We couldn't see the forest. But with all the nutrients and all the ingredients, you can see the sapling, right, will pop out of this seed. And it's going for the surface. It's going for the sunlight. Like, how does it know which way to go? And as it comes out, like, do you think that this seed, this tree is saying, like, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. I wish I was insignificant. I'm not capable. No. At all. It's going for. And then only when it breaks out of the, like when we break out of the earth and like see the sun, it's like, ah, there we are. We can see all the other ones. And now what do we do is like we grow into a tree and then we create a forest. So often that I find myself planting all the time without giving the proper nutrients. Masculine action. Not doing enough feminine action, not enough like nurturing in nature. Yeah. And so much standing over. Why aren't you growing fast enough? Why aren't you getting this? What about that? All of that with the anger. Just to acknowledge my egoic wounds, my patterns, and what it's like to stay in the creative tension. What it's like to stay in the away from being all wrapped up in by limited beliefs, by the problem orientation, a victim to my circumstances. Creating structure, create structure that has movement, that goes for what we want. So that's just what I want to share about is like just staying in the creative tension, especially when shit happens. Like it doesn't go as expected. We're co-creating in a world with others. But it's that creative tension is to stay in that, is to stay, is like, oh, is this really what I want, right? Is to find the heart, the wisdom, opening this communication up. I call it 3 communications between our ego brain, which is the one, our most newest one. It's the speaker, it's the talker. It gets our ideas out, and it's been a shortcut for us over the years, I think, right? And then the other part is our unconscious part. This is our feelings component of it. And really what we're working is this is what I want to create, and this is what it would feel like, so that I can feel that now because of how we've got our identities off, how we've fallen victim to it, because victim to fear, victim to control doesn't allow us to create what we want, right? And that's a structure. To create control, to create fear, to create all sorts of things. So in that is just to acknowledge that a life that we love, this is what it would be, this is how it would be, what it would feel like, and how it is now. And we set up the creative structure, the 5 steps, so that we can be flowing towards what we want. So that's all about staying in the creative tension without buckling to the egoic wounds. Thank you. Look forward to working with you on the next video.